Good morning, guys. Happy Friday. Hope you guys are having an exciting morning here already. Well, it will be exciting after we talk about today's players. We are talking about players with massive upside, massive ceiling, sky's the limit. 1,000 points per year potential. That's what we're talking about. We're talking massive. On the show, we've got Jim, and Jim and I are going to have a fight today because I looked at his players, and I don't think a couple of his players have any ceiling at all. They're going to have target dilution. So we're going to have a fight today. Jim, are you ready to scrap? Do you have your gloves on? Are you ready to fight?
I'm ready, man. Let's get down in the dirt.
Turn on that. Where's that bell? I have that bell sound effect where, ding, ding, ding. I lost it. Anyway, it's too early in the morning here. I can't even find it. But, dude, I'm telling you, man, there's a couple of your guys here when we're talking these massive upside players I don't agree with. I hope you have a compelling case against me here.
I hope I do too.
He's getting his notes ready as we're talking. I better have a compelling case. All right, before we get into this, Jim, let's talk about a little bit of news here.
We now have breaking news.
From Breaking Brad here. Nothing exciting in the news. Tim always laughs at it because it is offseason. It's kind of that calm before the storm. I talked about this at yesterday's show. A couple notes here, though. Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew split snaps with starters during off-season team activities and will continue to do so during training camp. Still undecided. Is it Aiden O'Connell? Is it Minshew, Jim? Do we really care? It affects Devontae Adams if you're drafting him. I got Zamir White in all my leagues. There is an impact here, but I think it's going to be Minshew to start. We don't know. No one knows.
It's going to be a mess. That's what it's going to be. We can guarantee that it will be because it's the Raiders. Come on. That is not a good situation when they can't decide on who they think should be, who is in the lead in this competition.
Yeah.
That just shows indecisiveness on the part of the coaches. And because of that, that's going to harm the effectiveness of the offense, because you really need to give whoever you're going to make the lead guy all the snaps. Give him as much as you can so he knows the system and can run the offense. And so who knows? This is just one of several messy quarterback backfields, which I don't want to mess with at all. So,
yeah, that old saying of chase two rabbits, catch none. You are diluting your reps for your quarterbacks, and then also you're not giving them the confidence. But that being said, you could look at a half glass full and say, well, these guys are going to work harder. They're going to push each other, blah, blah, blah. Couple ways to look at it. I think it's towards the negative. You got to have your starter picked. It's terrible for an organization to be this close to the season and say, hey, we don't even know who our starting quarterback is. I mean, let's get settled in, gentlemen. Let's get this going. The Raiders look like a disaster when it comes to that. I don't like that. And then also I'm hearing Michael Mayer, speaking of the Raiders, could see more snaps this season than rookie tight end Brock Bowers. And everybody's thinking I'm going to draft Brock Bowers and I'm going to get this year's Laporta, and everyone's trying to get cute with that and drafting Brock Bowers ahead of his ADP, thinking they're going to get the next Kelsey, and that may as well be, it could be possible, but I'm not getting the same feeling I had last year. Are you feeling Brock Bowers?
Yeah, you know what? I like where he's going on the draft board. And I've taken him in several drafts lately because I just like where he's going. He's usually like the 10th to 12th tight end coming off the board. That's an area that I like to grab my tight end. And so, yeah, I think as far as Michael Mayer goes, I'm really not interested in him at all. I think Brock Bowers is the better talent. He's a bigger guy, a bigger target, and the dude's all business. He is all business. Right. So, I got no problem with a guy with that kind of work ethic being on my team. So,
last thing I want to mention here, I'm hearing that this is funny. I'm hearing beat writers and stuff saying that Gus Edwards as the clear lead back for the Chargers heading into training camp. We talked about this before the show, like you said. Who else is there? Kamani Vidal is my only beacon light of hope that they actually get a real running back there, because Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, again, another situation where I love Herbert this year. I think he has a good year. I like McConkey. But what is going on with running back and the Chargers? Again, how do these teams, and we did the show on this a couple of shows ago, how are these teams settling? Like saying, oh, Zach Moss, who's years to wow, so we're not wowed. Aaron Jones, who's washed up, is going to be our starter in Minnesota. Gus Edwards and the Chargers. I don't understand these teams, man. They're not set at running back at all.
They've devalued the running back position for years, and
Right.
now they're just kind of just throwing in warm bodies. And I mean, if it's a good situation with a
Right.
good offense and a good offensive line, even a mediocre running back can have a good season, and we see that all the time. That guys like Rashad White. He
Yeah.
has been great for fantasy, even though his abilities, I mean, his pass catching abilities are really good, but his rushing abilities are very, very mediocre, subpar in my opinion. But when you get all the work, doesn't matter for fantasy. You are going
Right.
to be effective. You're going to be able to generate fantasy points.
Correct.
So I think that's kind of what you're seeing there. Is you're just kind of seeing further devaluation of the position, and they're just like anybody will do, any warm body will do. As long as they're moderately good, they can be effective. So
It's crazy, man. They've completely devalued it. That's why the running back, not only is it being diluted when we're going and looking at, the split committees, and then now you've got these mediocre running backs slated as starters that I don't trust drafting. So again, that's why people say don't go robust RB or don't go heavy, just go zero RB. I think that's crazy. I'm in a super flex league where a guy went zero RB. His running back one is David Montgomery. I would hate if David Montgomery is my RB one. I consider my year lost already. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be happy with David Montgomery as my RB one. I think it got him in like the seventh or eighth round in a super flex league. I think it was eighth round actually. That's crazy, Jim. I wouldn't be. Would you be comfortable with David Montgomery as your RB one?
I would not, but I have done a couple of zero RB drafts, and although I don't like it, there is good value in the middle rounds. There are
Yeah.
good value players. Like there
Yeah.
was one where I didn't take any running backs till the eighth round,
Mhm.
and I ended up with Tyjae Spears, Jalen Warren. Who else did I get? Oh, a Jerome Ford, and I'm drawing a blank on the fourth guy. But I
Yeah.
was looking at it, I'm like, you know what? It's not great, but they're not bad options, and some of these guys could go off. So I'm like, you know, it depends on the whole team build, and clearly that guy is not planning to win because of his running backs. He just needs his running backs to get him 10 to 15 points a week, and
Right.
he'll win with his other players. That's kind of that's kind of what
Absolutely.
zero RB is. So
All right, let's move on from news to notes. Guys, if you haven't gotten the 16 round draft solution and the draft tool, secure the solution, secure the championship. We've linked it below. Grab both below, link them below. Put your light years ahead of the sheep. 16 round draft solution, sleepers, breakouts, optimal players draft each round. Guys, it's the game changer. Grab it. I've linked it below. And grab a ticket to the Sports Summit. We've got Kyron Williams coming on the show this month, man. It's going to be wild. He's also going to be at the summit. You get a chance to ask him questions. Pat Fryermuth, Trey Benson, Tajay Spears, Frank Gore Jr., Rashid Shaheed. Grab a ticket to the summit as well. TheFantasyFootballAccounts.com. I've linked it below, guys. The first ever and only fantasy sports summit where fantasy meets reality. Absolutely amazing. All right, so let's dive into this, man. The first player that's got a massive ceiling is my guy here. And some people like yesterday I did a show on league winners, and most of those league winners were in the first round, right? And like, oh well, that's so obvious, guys. There's nothing obvious about first round players being league winners. Last year, I told you Eckler, Pollard would bust. Those are two examples I'm going to pick on here, and they weren't league winners. They sucked. So it's about drafting the right people in the first round. So it's not that obvious, right, Jim? I mean, some people say, oh, you said Brees Hall has a massive ceiling. He gets hurt week one, or like, Brandon Allen comes in, or Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, or something happens again and like his value is tarnished. It's like, okay, so do you see the same thing, Jim, in regards to like it's not so obvious in the first round? Do you kind of agree with that point?
yeah, I mean, there's good situations and there's bad situations. We've talked numerous times about Justin Jefferson as a very bad situation with his quarterback room, and because of that, we're not really interested in drafting him at any point in the first round. He's just has a very high risk, and he has a Garrett Wilson type floor.
Right.
That if he gets saddled with a bad quarterback that can't perform, which we know Sam Darnold is one of those quarterbacks,
Right.
and JJ McCarthy is not a quarterback that has ever been a high volume passing quarterback. He's been in low volume run first offenses his entire career.
Right.
Can he convert himself into that high volume player? I don't know, but regardless, the floor for Garrett Wilson last year, Garrett Wilson was wide receiver 36.
Yeah.
And even though he got a ton of targets, the dude got like almost 170 targets. And I can see a similar thing happening to Justin Jefferson this year. So I don't want him, right? I don't want him. But injuries, there's nothing you can do about injuries. They're random. uh, you know, it happens. Like, look what happened to Nick Chubb last year. Nick Chubb was another first round guy that totally
Yeah.
busted because his knee got destroyed in week 2. It was
Right.
crazy, very disappointing because I had Chubb in several leagues, but there's nothing you can do about that. That's luck. So
So going back to Brees Hall here, massive ceiling, massive upside. We saw what he did last year, finished as a top 5 running back with, getting eased in last year with Dalvin Cook there. I mean, the guy's an absolute stud. I don't know how else to tell you this, Jim. I mean, just under 1,000 yards. So like, this guy has not scratched the surface of what he could do. He could get it done in the receiving game, gets it done in the passing game. There's so much more to be seen and had with Brees Hall going into a season fully healthy. The sky really is the limit. When I look at him, I think, boom. God forbid, the only thing hindering this guy is they say, oh, we're just going to use Braylon Allen. He's a beast, right? And some people are comparing Braylon Allen to A.J. Dillon. Don't compare him to A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon sucks. I mean, could he be as bad as A.J. Dillon? We don't know how he's going to operate. We haven't seen him take a snap in the NFL. We don't know. He could come out and look, he can come out on a run, explode out there for a massive, 80-yard run, and Braylon Allen's on the radar, and now it's a 60-40 split. That's my only concern with Brees Hall that would limit his ceiling is, number one, injury, and number two, we don't know what kind of animal Braylon Allen is. Whereas I talked about this when, are we deciding Bijan or are we deciding Brees Hall? I like Bijan a little bit more because we know what we're getting with LG, and we're getting a subpar, mediocre backup instead of a complement back. So Brees Hall, though, aside from those, stipulations or whatever you want to call it, love the upside. Massive, massive, massive upside for Brees.
yeah, actually, in my opinion, I like Brees a little bit more than Bijan, to tell you the
Okay.
truth. I think, you look at what he did on that offense last year, one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and yet he still ended up as RB4.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. He is 2 years removed from that devastating knee injury he suffered. It is a contract year.
Right.
This dude had 95 targets last year. That's something people don't really talk about. This
Right.
dude is prolific in the passing game. That's very valuable. And you look at his production in the second half of last season, once he was kind of fully back from the injury, once they had kind of phased Dalvin Cook out, he was outstanding. And I expect him to hit the ground, literally running, no pun intended. But I'm just very excited for this guy. He's only 22 years old. Do you know he's only 22? He is
So young,
22,
man.
entering year 3 of the NFL. So he's young, and I think I think he absolutely has the pedigree, the ability to be the RB1 this year. So I'm all in on Brees. I love him.
Absolutely. Okay, the next one, not so obvious, and I disagree with you because of target dilution. I don't know. We're talking I think you missed the memo here, Jim. We're talking Jaden Reed here. Like, when I DM'd you, I said, let's find guys with massive upside, huge points, no other committees there, just guys that have a clear path to like 1,000 fantasy points. I know that's an extreme. I'm using the word 1,000, the numbers 1,000, just to get the point across. And you come up with Jaden Reed. I mean, this makes zero sense to me. Can you explain, please?
Okay, so I am a big believer. If a wide receiver in their first year, in their rookie season, places in the top 36 wide receivers, on average, and I did this analysis, on average, they get a 30% boost in targets in year 2, on average. And we had Jaden Reed that came out there, rookie, had what did he have? He had 94 targets. He was number 2 on the team, but the number 1 was Dobbs, who only had 96. So as a rookie, he's got 94 targets. You add another 30% to that, that gets you up to about 130, 120 to 130, right in that range. And this guy can absolutely become the lead receiver. Now, I know the whole philosophy of this team. We've heard Jordan Love say there is no the wide receiver 1 on this team. I don't believe it. There's going to be a favorite. The dude got how many touchdowns? He got 6 touchdowns. I'm sorry, 8 touchdowns last year. Just outstanding. He was by far the best receiver on this team, on a team of good receivers. And I just think he's being undervalued right now where he's going. He's going at ADP about 67. So that's sixth round. And I love taking Jaden Reed in the sixth round. I think he's fantastic. And to pair him up with Love, even better.
I think
Yeah,
that's your
I
bias.
think
I think that's your bias because you're very, very heavily invested in them. But that's why you're probably
I
invested.
am. I am heavily invested in him.
Yeah.
I fully admit that, but I'm only heavily invested in him because I see this potential. This is the upside that he is offering this year. So,
Well,
just
you made a compelling and reasonable debate on this one. Let us know what you guys think below on this one. Drop a comment. Is Jaden Reed the one? Do you see a massive ceiling there? It's very possible what you're saying is true. But again, what I saw in the playoff games last year was Romeo Dobbs was the one when the time mattered the most. It's going to be interesting. But the good news is with Jaden Reed, Watson, and Romeo Dobbs is that you don't have to spend a second, a third, or fourth round pick. I'm going to keep hammering this point home, Jim. I don't think a lot of people understand. I still keep seeing mock or real drafts. Sorry, I'm doing real drafts, high stakes leagues where Nico Collins is coming off round 2 and 3, and Diggs and Allen in a three-headed monster situation where you got Jordan Love, who actually outperformed CJ Stroud last year in fantasy production and points and everything all across the board. And his receivers are coming off at a discount 3 to 4 or 5 or 6 rounds later. Sign me up for a Romeo Dobbs round 10. I mean, why not? If you're playing wide receiver roulette, Jim, you might as well play a little bit later in the draft. Don't you agree? Like, I don't get it, man. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, outside of the first round, the quality of those wide receivers in the second, third round are really suspect, very, very risky, in my opinion. And so, yeah, you got to look at like what guys are available later that are being undervalued, just based on what people think is going to happen. And so
Yeah.
that's what I'm always looking for. I'm looking for undervalued players. For me, Jaden Reed definitely comes in as an undervalued player by at least a round, at least a full round. That's a great option. You want players that are going to overperform their draft position. I think Jaden Reed is a guy that can do that.
All right, next guy here who I love. Speaking of overperforming their draft position, I talked about him yesterday. I talked about him in the other show. I talked about him in my sleeper show. I talk about him all the time. I don't care if he busts. I don't care if he finishes with 10 points. I am all in on Keon Coleman. Round 8 ADP. Round 8 for a wide receiver 1. I saw somewhere in the comments saying, oh, he's not the wide receiver 1. Curtis Samuel is, and Khalil Shakir, and Dalton Kincaid. I'm not sold on that because Dawson Knox was the tight end 1. He was banged up last year. Kincaid came in, and I like Kincaid. Don't get me wrong. I think there's some ceiling with Kincaid. I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. But Keon Coleman, we are talking about over 240 freed up targets. Diggs, guys, if Diggs was there, I could see Keon Coleman coming off round 8. I'd be like, okay, you know what? Diggs is still there. I still see value in Keon, but I'm a little turned off. Diggs is not on the team. Where's our breaking news guy here? Hold on.
We now have
Gabe
breaking news.
Davis isn't on the team either. They lost their top 2 wide receivers.
Absolutely. So hold on a sec. Listen to this.
We now have breaking news.
Diggs is not on the team. Like what? And they're saying Curtis Samuel, a guy who hasn't had a 1,000 yard receiving season. The guy sucks. He's a gadget player. He's like I can't explain that one guy that sucked for years. He was on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I can't remember his name. He's just a gadget player. He's like a Cordarrelle Patterson. That's a good example. Like he's just a guy that can be a running back if he needs to. He can line up as a receiver. He can block. Like he's gonna be there. But Keon is the one. You know, one thing there was something that just came out. I think he was on a podcast, Keon. Jim, let me know what you think of this. Yeah, they asked him if he, fill the void of Diggs and Gabe Davis. He's like, I'm not Steph. I'm not, Davis. I'm Keon. I would have liked if he said, man, I'm better than those guys. I'm going to perform. But he didn't really say anything like he's better than them, but he says, I'm just myself. Is that a lack of confidence or is that just being kind of politically correct, Jim? What are your thoughts on that, his response?
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have generated some heat if he had said that he's better than
that.
Stephon Diggs. But, regardless that, let me see here. The dude's 20 years old. Okay, he's a kid. Yeah. Come on. He's still coming into his own, right? He's still grown into his body. So, I mean, I do very much like Keon. I do not consider Curtis Samuel a 1 on this team. He's never been a 1. At best, he's been a wide receiver 3. Khalil Shakir is not the 1 on this team. He's the deep pass field stretcher. Those guys are always low volume players, not very good for managed fantasy teams. And there's no way he's going to go from his 70 targets up to
Yeah.
like 110, 120. It's not going to happen. That's not in the realm of possibilities for what he does, for the role he plays on this team. Keon's coming into a great situation here. Now, I do think he is a little bit overvalued at where he's going, because he's going off,
No.
he's going off like 6th, 7th round.
He's
But
he's a first round pick.
the upside is there. And so the upside potential is very enticing. He's such a young player. And he could very much surprise. So I like him. He is the guy I would take
No,
on the
steal.
Bills receivers if I was going to take a receiver from them.
No,
So
he's an absolute steal. This guy should be coming off in the first round. The only thing that's discounting him 8 rounds is the fact of the unknown. They haven't seen him play. He's like, if you were drafting Diggs round 1, which everybody was for the past 5 years or whatever it is, because he's the number 1 to Josh Allen. I get him for an 8-round discount on what Diggs was. Are you kidding me? And Davis has gone to boot, more freed up targets. Are you kidding me, dude? I get this guy for an 8-round discount on where I was getting Diggs, and this guy could potentially be a better player. He could be the Michael Jordan of football, and we are getting him for an 8-round discount. Dude, sign me up everywhere.
And you have signed him up everywhere, haven't you?
I have. I'm all in. This is my ride or perish this year. This is ride or that off to the sunset and put my head down in shame player. I don't care. I'm all in. This feels like my Sam Laporta of last year. Mind you, he's not on this list in today's show. I talked to him yesterday. Is Ladd McConkey. I'm torn between these two. Either way, I'm getting both of them, so I don't have to decide on who I want. So I'm happy with both these guys. Let's move on to your next guy here. I have a little stock in this guy, not as much. Now, I like him. I don't know how massive the ceiling is, because this is weird that you pick this guy because you're not really a Trevor Lawrence fan. The ADP around 10 is great. The guy we're talking about is Brian Thomas Jr. What is your reasoning here? I like him. I see this a little bit, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, Brian Thomas has great value on the draft board right now for where he's going, because he's going like Jim, right around the 9th, 10th round.
Jim, this
right
is
in that range.
A value show. This is a massive upside show. I know I didn't mean to interrupt you, but is that what you're saying? Like, we're talking ceiling. You still have the ceiling.
I'm saying he's massively undervalued right now. He's massively undervalued. He should be going at about the same place that Keon Coleman and Ladd McConkey are going, right, in the 6th or 7th round. But instead, you can get him in the 10th. And I see these guys as having similar value. Brian Thomas, 1st round draft pedigree. He is replacing Calvin Ridley, who, again, took a ton of volume last year. I think Ridley had like 130 targets, something right there. I don't have it in front of me, but that is freed up. And Brian Thomas is going into that role. I think Brian Thomas is better than Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
Although, he's saddled with who I consider a bad quarterback. I don't like Trevor Lawrence, but again, he is the number 1 receiver on this team. He was amazing at LSU. I don't know if you watched any of his film.
Yeah.
The dude was just unbelievable talent. And so I am just like, I'm all in. I'm like, why would I pick anyone else in the 10th round besides Brian Thomas? Because he just looks so good. He rates so well with that Cuddy score that I put together. He scores 90 out of 100 points on my Cuddy score on my app, on the 16 Rounds Plus app. So he's just like a bright, flashing, neon, gaudy casino sign just saying, come here, pick me, pick me, pick me. I think it's just absolutely a fantastic value. I love it. I can't believe he's fallen, because he used to be going to about the same place that Keon and Ladd were going, but Ladd and those guys have moved up. This guy's moved down. I don't know why. But I'm going to take advantage of that, and I'm going to ride that. I mean, that's a rookie that I'm very excited about, because I think, again, he's a better value than Ladd McConkey or Keon Coleman. I think he's a better value because you can get him so much later than those other two guys. And I think they have similar outcomes. I think they have similar projections.
Yeah,
So
I agree
I
on
like
most
it.
of that. I agree on most of that stuff. And again, the value is great. What's sad is Christian Kirk is coming off ahead of this guy. Dude, here's the thing, right? When you are like, he got paid really well at the time, was Christian Kirk when he, went on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And when you are slated as the one, I knew he was a fake one, right? They bring in
Yeah,
Calvin
he's
Ridley.
never been a one. That guy is better as a two. He's
Yeah.
much better as a two.
He's always is a two, right? And then in comes Calvin Ridley, and you take the back seat to Ridley. That's when I knew you were a fake. I knew you were a faker before, but affirmed and confirmed my suspicions that you sucked. So Ridley came in comes now rookie who was drafted in the first round, like high draft capital
Yeah,
guy.
he was like 21st or something is where he was drafted.
Yeah. Top wide receiver prospect in this draft who could end up being the best wide receiver in fantasy this year, right? And not necessarily that Harrison came off first, that he's going to be the best wide receiver, right? And you're looking for I'm looking for a bounce back here at Trevor Lawrence. Am I overly excited about Trevor Lawrence? No, but I am seeing a bounce back. So when I look at a guy like Brian Thomas, man, all over him as well. Mind you, I've missed on him in a couple leagues because there's certain guys, whether it be Tajay or certain guys that I want, or maybe it's a Ladd McConkey or something where I'm just trying to get a tight end and try to fill a couple slots in there in around where he's coming off or whatever it is. It's like I've missed on him, but in this one league I'm doing right now, hopefully he comes back to me and I get him. But dude, love the upside, love the ceiling here. Love the talent. And like you said, the value is great. I like him more than I like Jaden Reed, especially based on the value, based on what we haven't seen, and based on him having a clearer path to the wide receiver one spot. It's Brian Thomas. I like him more than Jaden Reed, to be honest with you. My next guy here is Calvin Ridley. I don't want to spend too much time on him. I just see the Titans offense looking a lot better. A lot of this is predicated on how Will Levis will do. I just ended up getting him as my second quarterback in a 2-quarterback league because I waited super late. I still see the value. They made some, improvements on the O-line. They made improvements all around, adding, Pollard, Spears. They got the check downs. He can, he has that outlet there, adding, having Calvin Ridley. They have the veteran experience of DeAndre Hopkins. I think Ridley, and I talked about this yesterday. I ended up missing him in a draft. I waited around, missed out on him, Jim. I did end up in that draft we were talking. I did get up Will Levis, but I missed out on Ridley. I got Coleman, McConkey, and a couple other guys. But the thing is, I just see the ceiling could be massive as long as Hopkins degrades completely, kind of falls off, maybe gets hurt. And this guy's force-fed by Will Levis and becomes that safety blanket. Now, they paid him a lot. They paid him, 3 or 4 years, $92 million, or some ridiculous contract. The talent is there. The upside is there. And you've got Levis, in a back against the wall on the hot seat. I like Ridley, especially based on the value. I got him a little bit higher here, round 5. He comes off maybe a little bit later, round 6, give or take. But Ridley, this could be massive year for Calvin Ridley, honestly.
Yeah, and I've got him as a round 5 player myself. And yeah, I mean, last year, we were just talking about him. He had 136 targets. So 136 targets got freed up on Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I see him getting similar volume in Tennessee. So depending on how Will Levis does, I think that there is absolutely some upside here. I think actually on Pick'ems, I think he's definitely one you could pick an over on. He seems, just based on his volume, I think he's going to exceed it, no problem. But last year, 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Man, that's absolutely prime for what you want in the 5th, 6th round. You want a guy that's going to be able to do that for you. And again, I think DeAndre Hopkins is in the decline phase of his career. Every year is going to be worse than the year before. And plus he's a big injury risk. He's missed a lot of time with injuries. So this is just prime opportunity for Calvin Ridley to come in and just absolutely dominate the passing game in this offense. And I think he's going to be great. So I love Calvin Ridley. I've been taking him a ton. I got him in my dynasty league. I'm happy to have him. So
yeah, like I said, if you're looking at wide receiver, I feel more safe with a Calvin Ridley round 5 than a Nico Collins round 2. Again, it's totally up to you guys. I mean, Stroud obviously safer, but then again, you're not contending with a Diggs or a Tank Dell or a tight end or, Joe Mixon. So it's totally different, man, but it's interesting. All right, next guy here. Again, I disagree with you on this one. This one and Jaden Reed, I'm out on. I don't agree on these two, but Romo Duze here in a three-headed monster situation, and I'm guessing round 9 ADP. So you're talking about that value because you're not paying a high draft capital like Keon Coleman, right? Keenan Allen, Keon Coleman. Keenan Allen is higher draft capital, and so is DJ Moore. And I think out of those three, I'd rather have Romo Duze. Is that kind of what you're thinking? I don't know if the ceiling is going to be massive, though, based on the rookie quarterback. And of course, the target dilution with the other wide receiver ones there. So what's your thought behind Rome having a massive ceiling?
All right, so I love Romo Dunze because I think he's being severely undervalued here. He is this guy was taken 9th overall in the draft. 9th, okay? So he has got massive draft capital. And although there is a risk associated with taking such a crowded receiving room here, similar to what happened to Jackson Smith and Jigba last year, where he could end up with 500 yards and 3 touchdowns just because he's crowded out by the other two guys. We have an older Keenan Allen who gets injured a lot. There is an opportunity here that he could move into the number 2 position should anything happen to Keenan Allen. He is a bargain on the draft board. Like I said, I'm seeing him going in the 10th round, 9th or 10th round. And so I'm just looking at opportunity, and a guy with this kind of draft capital is going to be utilized. They again, a 9th overall pick to get this guy. And so I think that it's going to be, there is upside there. There is a potential here that he could really outperform his ADP and be good for your fantasy team.
I just don't like the ceiling. I like the talent. I think he should be the one. I just think Keenan Allen's at the end of the rope there. DJ Moore is just slightly above par. I don't think he's great. I just concerned about the target dilution. I've faded him in all my leagues. That being said, Keenan Allen gets hurt or fades off into the sunset, and Caleb Williams is as advertised and just absolutely tears up the league. Then, man, oh man, we've got some guy with a massive ceiling. So I see some potential there for sure. But the big turnoff for me is that target dilution for sure.
Yeah, it is. And frankly, he's going right about the same place that Brian Thomas Jr. is going. And I would take Brian Thomas Jr. every time between those two. But if we're in a situation where if Romo Dunze falls a little bit more and he's available on the next pick, I would take him at that point. I think there's some opportunity there. So.
All right, my next guy here, I think this guy could be super special. There's already, reviews out of coming out of the team that this guy is scary good. Is Jaden Daniels, round 7 ADP. I'm always, I don't like risks when it comes to quarterbacks. I like giving me a safe guy early, a Hurts, a Josh Allen if I'm going early, maybe a CJ Stroud, someone who's been on the field, proven. I hate taking rookie quarterbacks as my starters. Now, typically, I would get a Jaden Daniels at a discount, just like the year Mahomes broke out. I had him as my QB2. Unfortunately, the way that it's looking right now, it's very unlikely you're going to go Josh Allen round 3 and come back round 7 and get Jaden Daniels. So he is expensive, but I definitely see the ceiling out of LSU. I mean, this guy was a monster. I mean, in the rushing, what do you have? 10 rushing touchdowns, 1,000 rushing yards. I mean, he made his wide receivers extremely viable, but he had a good receiving core, right? He could get it done on the ground. If you go and watch tape, and always Tim the Ball guy says, oh, I hate watching highlight reels because it's always highlighting them. Yeah, but if you watch the highlight reels, man, oh man, does he look great. This guy could be a potential top 3 fantasy football quarterback. I've got zero stock in him because, again, that round 7 ADP, I'm just not doing it. But man, oh man, if you want to, risk it, biscuit type mentality and you want to just roll the dice on a guy and back yourself up, maybe get, Will Levis and Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or whoever it is as your backup, or Jared. If you get Jared Goff, I don't think you'll be able to get Jared Goff because they're coming off similar ADPs. But if you can get somebody that you feel secure as a backup to Jaden, I say go Jaden as long as you're secure with a backup. Dude, the sky's the limit, or he could bust. We don't know. I just don't like the Commanders. I think the Commanders is the issue for me. But this is why I love Ben Sinnott so much. So I've been missing on Daniels, but Sinnott is on all my teams, a tight end for the Commanders. All my teams, because I'm not really sold on McLaurin. I'm not sold on that wide receiver core. Someone's got to catch the ball. Eckler's on his way out, I think. But, dude, Jaden Daniels, I'm all over it, man. I like the upside.
Yeah, again, if you miss out on those elite rushing quarterbacks, you miss out on Allen or Hurts or Jackson, and even Richardson. This guy is the last guy available that offers that sort of rushing upside, and it's just so valuable. I got him projected at about 600 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, which gives him an extremely safe floor. And remember, this is a new coaching regime in Washington. So it's going to be a different offensive system. It is going to be, isn't it Cliff Cleansbury? I want to say Cliff Cleansbury is the offensive coordinator. Let me
Yeah,
see
yeah,
here.
yeah.
So
Cliff
uh,
Kingsbury.
it
I don't
is
know.
Cliff Cleansbury. Okay, yeah. So the guy, he's the one that had really very effective offenses when he was at Arizona. When his quarterback was healthy there, but again, you're going off the upside here, and it would take some cojones for me to take him as my QB1. And I think he's moving up. It seems like he's moving up here. If you're saying he's going round 7, but
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I do very much like Jane Daniels here, and again, yeah, you pair him with a solid pocket passing quarterback later after you take him. I think that's a good option for you to have, and gives you a little bit of a safer path forward. But again, the rushing yards, I can't pass up someone who's going to be able to do that. He went ballistic last year at LSU. I mean, the stats were gaudy. They were so incredibly massive. I'm excited to see what this guy can do, and he seems like he has been just working very, very hard at all the OTAs and everything. Really, just keeping his head down, doing his work, learning this system. I really like it. I'm very excited for what he offers.
Is he the real deal, or is he like Bo Callahan from Draft? First time ever I watched Draft Day. Have you seen that movie with Kevin Costner?
Oh, yes, I have seen that one. Yes.
Yeah, it was really, really good, man. It kind of shows you the draft process and kind of scouting out potential like real good talent, character issue, stuff like that. Jaden's could actually be special. He's no Bo Callahan, is what I'm saying, right? Like,
Yeah.
Bo Callahan was a little sketch for that matter. If you watch that movie, you understand what I'm saying. But Jaden Daniels looks like the real deal. He doesn't feel, fake, or he doesn't feel like he's gonna bust. He just feels there's something telling me he could be really good. Again, the Commanders need that lift, and this could be the answer. I'm getting good vibes from Jaden Daniels. He doesn't give me Bo Callahan vibes, is what I'm saying,
Right, absolutely not. I mean, if anyone in this class does get Bo Callahan vibes, I'd say it's Caleb Williams.
Yes, yes, I'm
But
getting that.
Jane
Yeah.
Daniels, I mean, like I said, he is just doing the work. He is impressing his teammates. He is earning the trust of these coaches and his teammates. I love what I have seen so far. I'm very excited to see what this guy can do.
Yeah, I'm feeling, Caleb Williams has that diva vibe to him. So I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, he's out there swinging baseball bats. He's out there showing and he didn't look coordinated. It was weird because I never understand it. Like, he looked way uncoordinated hitting the baseballs, right? And I always see pitchers, like even like quarterbacks, throw baseballs, and they don't look coordinated. There's something off. It's so weird. Like, you're a quarterback, but you look like a 5-year-old throwing a baseball at the mound. It's so strange. And
Those mechanics that you're talking about, it just looks weird because the guy's throwing a baseball instead of a football. But
right,
if you look at the mechanics of pitchers in
true.
professional baseball, that's how they throw it. That's the mechanics, and it just looks weird because you're not expecting to see it look like that. But yeah, I'm like I said, I think Jane Daniels is a unique talent. He can be this year's CJ Stroud with his upside. And so I love him. So
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, the mechanics, and it's all about technique. So these
yes.
quarterbacks don't have the pitcher's technique, so they're not going to throw like a pitcher. That's a good point too. Like, even when I do boxing, I've been doing boxing for so long, so I know how to turn my body. But for a person who has never thrown a punch before, it's going to look really awkward. They didn't turn their hips, they didn't get their, they threw off, they didn't have an inline fist and stuff like that. They punched with their back knuckles. Like, who knows, right? So it's all about technique. Let's go to the next guy here. Again, I see the upside with Marshawn Lloyd, round 11 ADP, but as of right now, his ceiling is definitely capped with Josh Jacobs, rookie running back for the Green Bay Packers, ultra explosive. I see this guy. The reason I'm not drafting Josh Jacobs, I was in on Josh Jacobs, but prior to the NFL draft. But when I saw Marshawn Lloyd get acquired, I got turned off of Josh Jacobs, rightfully so, because I think this is going to be, a Montgomery Gibbs type situation. So, man, oh man, Marshawn Lloyd. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I was a little bit out on Marshawn Lloyd, but now I've started to study what's going on. I looked at what like AJ Dillon's role was in the system before he sucked last year, and we're talking somebody that can get like 150 to 200 opportunities with the ball this year, and you keep talking about Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in a negative fashion, but let's not forget that Gibbs was like the RB7 and Montgomery was like the RB22 or something like that.
Yeah.
They can both be good in a good offense. And frankly, Green Bay is going to be a fantastic offense this year. There is upside here to where he could outperform. Likewise, Jacobs really struggled last year again in a poor offense coming off that
Yeah.
huge year. You think he'd be recovered at this point, but there could be opportunity for him to take over this backfield should anything happen to Josh Jacobs. So that's what I'm weighing this on. And then you look at his draft position, 11th round right now. There is opportunity here that he could just be an every week starter. He could be some guy that you could play in your RB2 or your flex spot every week right off the start. And then with the upside of being an RB1 sometime during the course of the year, just makes me think like, yeah, I definitely want a piece of that. So
Yeah, I
I
mean, I
like
definitely see the upside. I think Jacobs has to go down for Lloyd to absolutely dominate. I see a limited ceiling with him, but I definitely see him having a couple breakout runs, being explosive, and really dipping into the Jacobs volume. But Jacobs really has to go away, and that could be possible. You never know. My next guy here. This is kind of contradictory to what I've been saying, but I want to spin a new context to Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, massive ceiling, but Montgomery has to go away. Period. I know there's a stipulation and there's a caveat to Jahmyr Gibbs and all that, and I get it. But man, oh man, if Montgomery wasn't there last year, this guy would have had 500 fantasy points. Man, every time he came onto the field, it was an explosive run. Now, the coaching staff has said, yeah, he's good. He looks amazing every time he touches the ball. He's going to get the ball more. How much more? I don't know. I got him in a super flex league as my RB3. So I'm very happy with that value, Jim. That is phenomenal. But again, I still have the issue of Montgomery being there, Montgomery dipping in, Montgomery getting goal line work. 13 rushing touchdowns for Montgomery. They could have gone to Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs could have ended with 25 rushing touchdowns last year, potentially. Like you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I mean, it's not. It's not going to happen, and you shouldn't draft a player under the hope that one of his teammates gets injured. I think standing on his own, Jahmyr Gibbs is an absolute value. I'm in on him 100%. The guy had 71 targets last year. What was it? 200 and no, he only had 182 carries. There's a lot of room for him to grow the rushing thing. And we saw him. He was just kind of eased in, right? He didn't do too much like the first month.
Yeah.
Then you saw more and more in the next 4 weeks. But then the second half of the season, he really kind of just took over that
Yeah.
backfield. And Montgomery still had his role. Montgomery's still going to do his thing. Montgomery is not involved in the passing game. So that's one thing. And two, Gibbs was taking more and more of that goal line work. So I see a real opportunity for growth in his usage.
Yeah.
We could see maybe a 20% increase in his overall usage this year. That would impact Montgomery. And if Montgomery is getting all the carries between the 20s, who cares? Those are low value touches. The things that matter is the passing down work and the goal line work. And I think that Gibbs is going to dominate both. And I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic. I like him way more than you do, and I don't have any caveats about taking him with
Yeah.
Montgomery being there.
Like I said, his ceiling, his speed, his potential, just as a player, massive, massive, massive upside. the David Montgomery problem has to go away. There has to be an injury. There has to be something for David Montgomery. Like he was squatting 700. Did you see that video where David Montgomery was squatting 700 pounds? Did you see that one, Jim?
Hey, Montgomery's pretty good. He looked
I
good
think,
last year.
I think it's
So
stupid. Like he's trying too hard. Like, look at me. I could squat. Like, dude, just show us on there. You don't need to squat 700 pounds to be an amazing running back. I get it. You're strong, whatever. Like, he is so desperate to keep his job, man. It's like, look at me. Look at me. Hold on. I got that voice. Look at me. Look at me. I'm David Montgomery. I need to squat 700 pounds to show you I'm good.
I don't know why are you giving all this hate on Montgomery? He's
I
a
don't
good
like
guy.
him.
He's a
I
good
don't.
player. And this is a good team. This is a really good team. I'm very excited for what Detroit can do this year. I'm excited for it. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a star. I mean, again, rookie season, he was the RB7. That's great. He's proven what he can do. He's going to get more work on this offense.
Yeah.
And Montgomery's still going to be there for 2 more seasons. Just deal with it. He's got a 3-year contract. He only did year 1 last year. So he's got 2 more years on this team. I am not worried about Montgomery. I want Gibbs.
Dave Montgomery did DM me that one time. I went off on him on social. I was like, "Why are you doing that to me, man?" He's like, I don't know what he said. Don't disrespect me or something. He was nice about it. But yeah, I'm all in. I'm the Gibbs guy. So, but again, for me this year, it's hard for me to spend a 1st-round pick knowing Montgomery's there. I'm going to keep saying it in all my videos, but love Gibbs. Still massive upside either way, but more if Montgomery goes away. Last guy here. I like to end it off on a high note, Jim, but I'm not really. I got this guy for the value round 13 after Demario Douglas, who could be and probably is going to be the potential wide receiver 1 in New England. Is there a massive ceiling? They got Polk there. They got other wide receivers. Stevenson's could get some good value this year and some volume at running back. But what's the deal with Demario Douglas? I don't know if there's a massive ceiling here, but man, oh man, I mean, I think you think this show is the value show, Jim. I mean, this is not the value show. This is the massive upside show. Does Demario Douglas have that? I don't know about that.
I think he does. At his current ADP of 152, this guy's got upside. He's got, and this is a guy that I think can be an every week starter for you. This is an every week flex play that you can get in here. He is very, very undervalued at where he's going right now. And I do believe that Demario is going to be the number 1 target for whoever the quarterback is, whether it's, isn't it Heineke or May, right? I think it's one of those 2 guys. He's the slot player, so he's going to get the volume. And I'm just very excited to see what he can do this year and grow his role from what he did in his rookie season.
Yeah.
So, you're right. He is a value play. Yes. But I believe he's got enough upside, and he's it's such a great spot on the draft board for someone that could be an every week starter you can get in the 13th round. That's huge. That's huge for your fantasy team. So that's why I chose him.
I like your spin. You kind of tweaked it to kind of say best bang for your buck, massive upside based on ADP. And absolutely at round 13, I mean, that is like, he is really maximizing that ADP for sure. I like that upside based on that. Very Dollar General of you, Jim. Very Dollar General of you.
I'm always looking for values, man. I am cheap. I'm a cheap man. I like to save money wherever I can. And when I see a bargain, I tell people about it. And that's what I want to do here. Demario Douglas is probably the best bargain on the draft board right now.
He really is. I'm getting like, he gives me that, like, not so much as exciting, but gives me kind of that Tank Dell vibe last year where he's one of those guys like, we're completely sleeping on this wide receiver core. Like the Patriots wide receiver 1s. Like I said, if you want to play wide receiver roulette, play it with Demario Douglas and Polk in like round 13 and after. Don't do it with your 2nd round pick. Now, mind you, that being said, Nico Collins could go off and be a top 3 wide receiver. Very possible. But are you willing to risk that knowing that Diggs could be the number 1 receiver or Dell could be the number 1 wide receiver? And one of these, it's going to be diluted, man. These guys are going to I think all 3 could potentially fall out of the top 10, top 15. And that's not what I want to risk in the 2nd or 3rd round. I'm not doing it. Not doing it.
The reason why everybody loves Nico Collins and Tank Dell is because those were the guys that you got in the 13th, 14th, 15th round, and they became every week starters for you. That is why everybody loves them so much. That's what a guy like Demario Douglas is offering here. He can be the one that can become next year's Tank Dell, and all of a sudden he'll be like a top 50 pick next year. if he comes
Yeah.
through the way I think he can come through. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. These deep value plays with big upside, you want to take advantage of them, and these are the kind of guys you want to pick, not some wide receiver 3 on that you know the name of,
Yeah.
like a Josh Reynolds or Khalil Shakir or
Yeah.
those guys. Those guys are not going to be ones. They're never going to be. They're never going to be ones.
Yeah.
This guy could be a target hog
Yeah.
and just be massive value for you for fantasy.
Always aim high on the depth chart. I always try to do that, always try to
Yeah.
emphasize that point. So that's it, guys. Massive upside, Jim. Make sure you guys do grab the 60-round draft solution. Smash the tap and slap. Hit the thumbs up. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have yourself a great weekend. I'm going to keep on with my vlog videos over the weekend. Maybe do a little bit of a mini mock draft, something like that. Grab the 60-round plus tool. Grab the solution below. Smash the tap and slap it. Grab the shirt. Guys, everything's linked below. If you want direct coaching, I've linked it below as well. Guys, it's going to be an amazing season, guys. Thank you for being here. Anything else, Jim, you want to say here?
Nope, that's it, man. Have a great weekend, everybody.
We should have talked about your massive biceps since it was a massive show. I didn't introduce that at the beginning of the show. Damn it, I missed it,
Me and Samir, we work out together, and I tend to make him a little embarrassed because I'm so much stronger than him. But we work it out. We're good buddies. So
yeah, I bet. he's probably he's probably curling you on his right arm every day.
He probably could. Yes. So
all right, guys. We'll talk soon. Thank you. And next time we'll feature Jim's biceps at the beginning of the show, not at the end. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll talk soon.